I used to think that when people said they had a bad feeling, they were just being dramatic. But this happened on a night so ordinary that I still replay it in my head, wondering how close I came to ignoring my instincts completely. It was late October, cold and damp. The kind of night where rain doesn't pour, but never really stops either. Just tapping softly against the windows and concrete. And I got home around 9:30 p.m. after work, tired, distracted, and already thinking about sleep. My apartment complex was quiet, like usual. One flickering hallway light reflecting off the wet ground. And after locking my door, I noticed a notification on my phone saying a package had been delivered, which didn't make sense because I hadn't ordered anything. I assumed it was a mistake and went about my night, microwaving leftovers and sitting on the couch while rain pattered steadily outside, until a soft knock came at my door. Not loud, not aggressive, just calm and polite. When I checked the peephole, I saw a man standing there, wearing a hoodie and a baseball cap, holding a plain cardboard box, his posture relaxed, his hands visible, and when he spoke, his voice sounded normal, explaining that he was delivering a package for another apartment, but no one was answering. I should have trusted the uncomfortable feeling that crept in right then, but instead I cracked the door with the chain still on, the smell of rain drifting into my apartment. And as I reached for the box, my fingers brushed the cardboard, and he didn't let go. He leaned closer, just enough to lower his voice, and said, "That's not actually why I'm here." And in that moment, everything slowed down. The rain, my breathing, the hallway sounds. As his foot slid forward to block the door, and his calm tone shifted into something colder, more deliberate, like he'd rehearsed this before. I shut the door with everything I had and managed to slam it shut, locking the deadbolt and stepping back as my heart hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears. For a few seconds there was nothing but silence and rain before the knocking started again. Harder this time, more urgent, the sound echoing through the hallway. I didn't answer, didn't move, just stood there frozen as the knocking stopped abruptly, leaving a quiet that felt even worse. And when I checked my hallway camera feed on my phone, my stomach dropped because the man hadn't left. He was pressed flat against the wall beside my door, just out of view, waiting. Another knock followed, slower now, almost patient, and then he spoke softly through the door and said, "You live alone." Not as a question, but as a statement. And that was when I finally called 911, whispering to the dispatcher while keeping my eyes locked on the door, as if it might open on its own. Minutes felt like hours. As rain continued outside, every sound of the building felt amplified, until I heard footsteps running down the hallway, a voice shouting, "Police department!" and the sound of someone sprinting towards the stairwell. When the officers knocked and announced themselves, I opened the door shaking, and they searched the building but found no package, no delivery vehicle, and no sign of the man. Only telling me this wasn't the first call they'd had like this, and that similar reports had come from nearby complexes, some involving people who hadn't been fast enough to close the door. I didn't sleep at all that night, and by morning the reality of what had almost happened finally settled in, pushing me to take steps I should have taken long before, upgrading my locks, installing a door brace, adjusting my camera angles so there were no blind spots, and changing the way I responded to anyone unexpected. I stopped opening my door for strangers completely, verified deliveries through apps only, and learned to accept that being polite isn't worth being vulnerable when something feels wrong, even if you can't explain why. 2 weeks later, I saw the man's face on a local news alert after he was arrested trying the same tactic in another building, and knowing someone else hadn't been as lucky made the whole thing feel even more real. I moved out of that apartment 3 months later, not because I was scared to exist there, but because I understood something I hadn't before. Danger doesn't always look dramatic or violent. Sometimes it sounds like a gentle knock during a rainy night. And listening to that quiet instinct instead of second guessing it is the reason I'm still here to tell this story.